On today's show, Ty Jerome is gone in free agency. He's left the Cavs, will now be playing for the Memphis Grizzlies. How does this affect things? How did we get here? Plus, we'll talk a little bit about the other news of the day for the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's all straight ahead on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube as we get started here, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, because right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is, again, $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins with FanDuel. The Cleveland Cavaliers have lost Ty Jerome in free agency. He has agreed to a contract with the Memphis Grizzlies, a 3-year deal worth $28 million, according to ESPN. According to ESPN, again, the third year of that deal is a player option. And there's a lot to unpack here, I think, with the Ty Jerome stuff. And I do think it became pretty clear this weekend that the Cavs were not going to keep Ty Jerome. When they made the trade for Lonzo Ball, sending Isaac Okoro out, when they signed Sam Merrill to a deal that frankly, I'm very surprised that Sam got more money in free agency, I guess, quote unquote free agency, not really, because he re-signed with the Cavs. But I am surprised that Sam's contract is bigger than Ty's. I thought for sure that Ty would be getting a bigger contract than Sam did. And I was obviously very wrong about that. I think a lot of people went into this offseason assuming that. And I do wonder, and I think it begs the question, how much money did Ty Jerome lose with his poor performance against the Indiana Pacers in the second round of the playoffs? So we will talk about that certainly a little bit. But the one thing that I kind of have learned over the past little bit here is that, one, this isn't as simple as, the Cavs picked Sam over Ty Jerome. Like, on paper, yes, that is a thing. Like, they have Sam Merrill on the team. They don't have Ty Jerome on the team. But I do also wonder if this for Ty was about more than just money. Because could the Cavs have paid Ty Jerome what he made, or will be making, from the Memphis Grizzlies? I think so. I think it would have been a little uncomfortable to be paying Ty Jerome $14 million a year. I thought that he was going to get a number much closer to the full mid-level exception. So to see him come in actually making less money in this deal than Sam Merrill will be making in his, I find to be very surprising, of course. But there is also one thing that Memphis can offer Ty that the Cavs couldn't offer Ty, and that's playing time. And I do think that is something that mattered in this. I don't think this is as simple as, well, Memphis offered more money. I don't know what the Cavs offered. I have no idea what that contract was. But I do know, if you look at the backcourt for Cleveland, it's more crowded than what Memphis has. Obviously, Memphis has Ja Morant, but they traded away Desmond Bane. And according to ESPN, Cole Anthony not going to be part of Memphis because, of course, he was part of the package back for Bane. So they really do have a lot more room in the backcourt for somebody like Ty Jerome. Like, Ty played fewer than 20 minutes. And I thought that this year, and I know that Ty finished third in sixth man of the year, and he was very good all season for the Cavs. And he was, I thought, one of the best stories in basketball this year, going from a guy who, had he not been on a 2-year deal, had he not signed a contract that was 2 years last summer, or 2 summers ago, had he not signed that contract, I don't know that he would have been in the NBA this year, considering that he only played 15 minutes in the 2023-2024 season, had that ankle injury that cost him essentially the entire season, really hadn't proven much as an NBA player up to that point. So I do wonder, okay, had he not had a fully guaranteed contract going into last season, would he have been on anybody's roster? I don't know. There's no way of ever knowing that. But then he comes in and he's awesome. And he plays, I think it was 19.9 minutes a game. And he was terrific for the Cavs in that stretch. I personally thought, while he, yes, finished third for Sixth Man of the Year and deserved to be in that spot, I thought the award he should have won, but was not eligible for because he didn't play enough, was Most Improved Player. Because he went from a guy that was not really, it's hard for me to say that Ty Jerome before this past season was really an NBA player. And what he did this year was incredible. Now, is that something he's going to duplicate moving forward? I don't know. Like, I do understand being a little uncomfortable paying Ty Jerome $14 million, and it would not have had to have been that much theoretically to keep him. That is one thing that I do keep coming back to. It would have been maybe a little uncomfortable because you don't have a long track record of success. There is a chance that this 1 year is a flash in the pan. I don't necessarily believe that. I think Ty will do good things for Memphis. But I do know in looking at the situation for the Cavs, they've got Donovan Mitchell. They've got Darius Garland. And even if you want to remove the Lonzo Ball trade and just, go that route, it's hard for me to find instances, and this is kind of why I do think Lonzo Ball is a good fit. It's hard for me to find instances where we can just pencil in 25 minutes a night for Ty Jerome in Cleveland. Like, as you go through potential rotations for the Cavs, that's a tricky exercise to do. I think that could the Cavs have matched this financial offer from the Memphis Grizzlies? They could have. I don't know if they wanted to or not. I don't know. But I do know they couldn't have matched what Memphis can offer him in terms of how much he's going to be able to play. And I think part of this too is that you look at it, yes, this number came in lower than anticipated. Like I've said, I thought he would be getting more money than this, but he's got a player option in year 3. So really the way that you have to look at this is a 2-year contract worth about $19 million. We'll see what the final numbers look like at some point, but this is basically a 2-year contract. And that means if Ty plays well for the next 2 years, he will have another chance to cash in. And I do think that is something that you look at as appealing. So when you combine that with Ty's ability to play more in Memphis, like he will, if he's healthy next year, I would bet on Ty Jerome playing more minutes for the Memphis Grizzlies per game than he played for the Cavs this year. And I think for him, that is something that I would imagine is very appealing, because this is a really easy situation to sit here and blame the Cavs. And I understand it. And maybe there is some blame to be given to the Cavs. But I also look at this and say, you know what? I'm not entirely sure that Ty Jerome wanted to be back in Cleveland. And I think that is something that maybe gets looked over a little bit, because we just assume that, well, if the money's the same, of course he would want to stay. I don't know that that's true. I think there's a better chance that Ty Jerome wanted to leave Cleveland than wanted to be back in Cleveland, not because of a bad experience here or, the way the postseason went with him not being in the rotation essentially in Game 5 against the Pacers, although I do think that was something that probably was upsetting to Ty. But I think that if you're looking at this situation from Ty Jerome's perspective, it's hard to find those minutes for him. It is a hard thing to find those minutes for Ty Jerome, and I think that had to be part of the equation there. I don't know that this is the case of the Cavs not wanting him back. I think it's more likely this is the case of Ty Jerome wanting to be in a different situation. And what I do know is Memphis thinks very highly of him. I've heard that the Grizzlies are very, very excited about having Ty on this contract, and they love him and they think he can be really good. And you know what? I think truthfully, to see a guy go through what Ty went through and to have a real payday like this and have the chance to potentially make even more money down the road, I think that'll be a good thing for Ty. And I think that you want to wish this guy all the best. Like, I think that as a Cavs fan, that is what you should be doing. Like, sure, there's going to be people that are upset about this, and I totally get it. But I don't know that this was just as simple or as easy as, well, the Cavs picked Sam Merrill over Ty Jerome. I think there's part of it. And again, I do not know what the Cavs offered. I don't know what their contract offer to Ty was, if there was one. I don't know. But I also think, well, Ty would have to pick the Cavs too. So sure, they picked Sam Merrill, but Sam Merrill also picked staying in Cleveland. Ty Jerome picked going to Memphis. And that is something that I don't think can get lost in this conversation. Again, this would be maybe a little bit easier or different to talk about if I know what the exact offer from the Cavs was, but I don't. And that is something just worth remembering, is that I do think there's a pretty real possibility that Ty Jerome didn't want to be back in Cleveland because Ty Jerome wanted to have a different opportunity. He wanted to have a better opportunity. And for some guys, that matters a lot. Ty's not in the point in his career, I think, where he is able to just, you know what, I'm content playing 15 to 20 minutes a night, especially for somebody who has not had the NBA success that he certainly thought he would coming out of college as a first-round pick. Chasing that success, I think, is fine by me. That is something that if that's what Ty wants to do, that's what Ty should do. And I think that this decision is, at the very least, partially a reflection of that. So I understand that it's easy to blame the Cavs here, and I'm not saying that the Cavs are blameless in this, because I do think that you can make the case right now that the Cavs are a worse basketball team than when the season ended. I went into this on yesterday's show that I think better or worse in late June, early July is maybe not all that meaningful. I think they're different. That's probably a better way to put it. That's certainly how I would phrase it, that the Cavs, maybe they're better, maybe they're worse. They're without a question different than they were before. So I understand the angst around this, but I do think that there's a chance this is a move that works out for everybody, because truthfully, what Ty Jerome wanted, I think, maybe didn't have everything to do with money and partially had to do with opportunity. And the Cavs don't have the opportunity to offer him because they've got Darius Garland, because they've got Donovan Mitchell. And to win a championship, you don't want to take away opportunities from those guys. So congratulations to Ty Jerome for that contract. It's something that is awesome for him. This is a great opportunity for him. But at the end of the day, I do think that opportunity mattered. Again, don't know what the Cavs offered. Don't know if the Cavs wanted him back. Don't know if he wanted to be back. But I do think that the opportunity that he will have playing in Memphis is truthfully one that he was just not going to get in Cleveland because of the way this roster is set up. So free agency, obviously ongoing. We don't expect the Cavs to be big players early, but there are a couple of names that I think are interesting. A couple of former Cavs that maybe a reunion could be in store for if they're down to take a minimum contract. We will talk about that next right here on Locked on Cavs. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, which I certainly am, or high-stakes soccer action, or even WNBA games. Cleveland getting a team. That's why I'm wearing this hat today. Cleveland getting a team 2028. Very excited about that. But FanDuel, the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Getting sunburned at the beach, very bad. Getting in on the game with FanDuel could be very good. Getting sunburned on the beach feels a lot like watching our baseball team try and hit the baseball right now. Not a fun thing. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, if you're new to FanDuel, you can get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. Again, open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to potentially get your $150 in bonus bets. Thank you again for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked on Cavs. So the Cavs will have at least one open roster spot. And one of the ways that I would sort of view this offseason is the Cavs are not looking to fill out a 15-man roster. They're looking to fill out a 14-man roster. That is traditionally the way that Kobe Altman has operated as president of basketball operations. Of course, last year after the trade they made, which brought in DeAndre Hunter, they did sign Javonte Green as a buyout guy, and then they added Chuma Okeke, who they declined the team option on, according to Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com the other day. So they are right now, I think, looking to get to 13 or 14. You can have 13 guys on the roster. You can only do that for 2 weeks at a time, and I believe for a total of 4 weeks throughout the season. So the number that we are looking for is 14 guys. Now, how do the Cavs get to 14? they are going to, at some point, they will sign a free agent or two. One of those guys might be Tristan Thompson on the minimum again. Somebody else they could sign could be somebody that we might not see coming. And one name that I keep coming back to for the Cavs that they could potentially sign or name to at the very least keep an eye on is Larry Nance Jr. Larry Nance, of course, is a Northeast Ohioan. His dad played here. He played here. He's from here, went to Revere High School. I think we all know the history. I don't need to give you guys the history of Larry Nance Jr. But he is a free agent this year. Contract expired with the Atlanta Hawks. And I didn't necessarily think that he would be somebody that would be available prior to the Hawks making the trade for Kristaps Porzingis. I do wonder whether or not he is going to be somebody that is on a minimum contract. I don't know if he's going to be a minimum contract guy yet. Typically, guys want to push that off as long as they possibly can, because once you are a minimum contract, it's really hard to stop being a minimum contract. That is a big challenge. You don't often see guys go. That's why you so often see guys later in their career. They don't want to be bought out, because if they are bought out, well, then they become essentially a minimum guy. And that is a very difficult cycle to break. I don't know if Larry Nance Jr. is ready to be a minimum contract guy. I have no idea. But I do know that if he is a minimum contract guy, he is somebody that the Cavs should have interest in. Of course, a lot of the need on this roster still is that third big. That is something that I do think they need somebody other than Jared Allen, other than Evan Mobley, that can play center, that can play power forward, other than Dean Wade as well, and fill in some of those minutes. And one of the things that I do think is appealing with Larry Nance Jr. is I think he could play the 4 or the 5. And that is something that I do think would be really good for the Cavs to find in that third big, is somebody that could play alongside both Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Because while Tristan Thompson, when he's out there, he does provide rebounding, of course, doesn't play very often. He does provide that rebounding, but he is strictly a 5 at this point in his career. I know earlier in his career, he played power forward, and it was a much different NBA when he was a young pup than what the NBA is now. But I think having somebody like Larry Nance, who I think you would feel comfortable playing next to Jared Allen, playing the 4, maybe that's not the ideal lineup for the Cavs, and that's not something I would expect a lot of, but you would feel comfortable with that. You would also feel comfortable playing him next to Evan Mobley. And if you could get somebody like that at a minimum contract for the Cavs, I do think that would be a big win. But again, I think a lot of this just comes back to, is he going to be able to find money from another team? Maybe Atlanta wants to re-sign him at a number over the minimum. Maybe there's another team out there that wants to give him part of their mid-level exception or a biannual exception, something along those lines that the Cavs just don't have access to. Because right now, the only way the Cavs are allowed to spend money as a second apron team, they're allowed to use an exception to sign Tyrese Proctor, the second round draft pick they took at 49 overall out of Duke. They could use that same exception to sign Saliu Niang if they wanted to, but he's not going to be coming over this year, so that doesn't matter. And they can use the veteran exception to sign, or a veteran minimum exception, to sign anybody on a minimum contract. So they are not allowed to pay more than the minimum. So that is why I think it's so important that, one, the Cavs are going to have to wait, because guys are not going to be taking the minimum deal early in free agency. Like, that is not something that often happens. So I do think that when we do see action from the Cavs, it's going to be later this week when money has dried up. It's just not fair to necessarily expect them to be big spenders in free agency, one, because they're not allowed, or I guess be, super active early in free agency because they're not allowed. And two, because when you take a look at this, it's like, well, guys kind of want to see where all the money goes before they settle into making the minimum amount of money they can. The other guy that I think falls into this same conversation is Jordan Clarkson. And Jordan, of course, a former member of the Cavaliers, was acquired at the trade deadline in 2018. He was on that last LeBron Cavs team. And then, of course, was dealt to Utah a little bit after LeBron left. Like, he was not here for a long time, but he was here for a good time, I think is fair to say about Jordan Clarkson in Cleveland. But he's been in Utah since then. And of course, when he first got to Utah, the Jazz were good. Why were they good? Because they had Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Well, obviously, Donovan Mitchell is here. Rudy Gobert is in Minnesota, and the Jazz have stunk for most of the time that Jordan Clarkson has been in Utah. So he secured a buyout with the Jazz on Monday afternoon and is going to hit free agency. And my understanding of it is, and Bobby Marks of ESPN tweeted this out the other day, that the Cavs are not allowed to sign buyout guys, but that only matters in season. During the offseason, they are allowed to sign buyout guys. So like Jordan Clarkson, if he's going to be a guy that, again, getting back to the Larry Nance Jr. conversation, if Clarkson's going to be a guy that's on a minimum contract, the Cavs can play ball there. Like they do not have to be, they're still eligible to sign him despite the fact that he is a buyout guy. So that is one thing to keep in mind. But when you look at what his career arc has looked like, of course, he was in Los Angeles on some not very good teams at the end of Kobe Bryant's career. And then he was in Cleveland for half of a season, 1 year that was good, going to the finals. And then the rest of his time in Cleveland, the Cavs were not very good because LeBron left. And then he went to Utah and they were good for a little bit. And then Donovan Mitchell got traded, Rudy Gobert got traded, and the Jazz have been bad since. So Jordan Clarkson has not been around winning because the team situations that he has been in have just not been that. So I do wonder if for him, and I don't know Jordan, to be clear, I have no idea what his thought process is. Maybe he wants to get paid again. I don't know. But I do look at it as the whole buyout situation. When you get bought out, I do think you're more apt to be a minimum player at a certain point. Like, I just think that maybe that's in the cards for him. I do think as somebody that could potentially replace Ty Jerome as sort of that microwave coming off the bench, a guy that can provide a quick burst of scoring, which we have seen Jordan Clarkson do throughout his career. I wonder if that could be in the cards for the Cavs. Like, that is a name. And I know that he has been connected to the New York Knicks. I don't know what they would offer him. I don't know what his market is going to be. This is obviously something that was a little more sudden than knowing somebody's going to be a free agent. But I look at this and say, okay, well, if winning matters and he's willing to take a minimum, I think he would be a very good fit with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Of course, I think we're going to have to wait and see. By the time this publishes, he could sign with somebody else. I don't know. It is 8:05 on Monday night as I record this, but I wanted to get thoughts up or get my thoughts out, so to speak, pretty quickly after the Ty Jerome signing. So there was other news in not only the Cavs world, but the Cleveland basketball world that took place on Monday. I wanted to spend a little bit of time just touching upon, one, the Cavs not tendering Imani Bates a restricted offer, and two, the WNBA is back in Cleveland. We're going to talk about those two things next right here on Locked On Cavs. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button as we continue on here. So the deadline for teams to extend qualifying offers to would-be restricted free agents was Sunday night. And the Cavs did extend a qualifying offer to two-way wing Luke Travers. Luke, of course, was on a two-way last year with the Cavs. It was his first year coming over from Australia. I would imagine because they did send this offer out, because they did tender this offer, I guess is the proper term, I would imagine that Luke is back on a two-way. So we know that Naquan Tomlin is on a two-way. His deal was a 2-year two-way. So he will be back. That seems like the plan to me. And because of this news with Luke Travers, it sounds like he's going to be back as well. And I kind of have been hinting at this for a while on this podcast whenever Imani Bates would come up, that I would be surprised if he were to be back. And this does cement that. Imani Bates is not going to be a member of the Cavaliers next year. Very curious if he's going to catch on with another NBA team. Cavs did not extend the qualifying offer to him, making him an unrestricted free agent. He is free to sign at any time with any team. Maybe by the time this publishes, after I edit it and all that stuff, Imani Bates will have a new contract somewhere else. I would be very surprised by that, though. I was somebody that I saw the potential in Imani coming out of college. I thought, okay, this guy can go get buckets. And obviously he had a very high pedigree. He was a 5-star talent coming out of high school, did have some issues at Memphis, of course, then goes to Eastern Michigan and, playing basketball in the MAC. You don't see a lot of guys from that level make it to the NBA. And I have watched Imani both years play with the Charge. I've watched him in summer league, and Imani has been nothing but very gracious with his time when I've talked to him for stories. He's been a very nice guy to me, but my personal interactions with him have been limited, but he's always been a genuine nice guy to me. But as I have watched him, and I was high on him coming out of college, I thought, okay, this kid can shoot. Like, if nothing else, Imani Bates can be a 3-point shooter. But the problem is, the more I watched him, the more that's all he was. I don't think that Imani Bates is a good enough athlete to be in the NBA. And that is something that it's unfortunate, but I just don't think that he's quick enough. I don't think that he is explosive enough as an athlete to really stick in the NBA. And yes, he is a very good shooter, but there's not really much else that he has shown that he can offer so far. So maybe after this, he will be able to take his game to another level and it will work out for him. I hope it does. I think he is an easy guy to root for. But I also just look at this situation and knowing what I see, like, I just don't think that he is an NBA quality athlete, despite the one NBA skill that he does have, which is shooting. And of course, he's not been super efficient with the Cleveland Charge in the 2 years that he's played there. Maybe he'll catch on with another team and maybe it'll work out. But I think this news really does bring the Imani Bates era in Cleveland to a close. And of course, the one era in Cleveland that is going to open up is the WNBA is back. And I just wanted to carve out a couple of minutes to talk about this because, of course, this has been rumored for several months now. There was a report 2 or 3 months ago, it was during the basketball season, the NBA season. There was a report that Cleveland was going to be awarded a WNBA team. Of course, this team will be owned and operated by Rock Entertainment Group, which is Dan Gilbert's group, the same group that operates the Cavs, the Cleveland Charge, the Cleveland Monsters, Rocket Arena, all that stuff. So this is, I think, something that's really cool. Of course, Cleveland did have one of the original 8 WNBA franchises, the Cleveland Rockers. We do not know if this new franchise is going to be called the Rockers. They've not decided on that yet. But I do think it's really cool that women's professional basketball is going to be back in Cleveland. I think the city is ready for it. I think the WNBA expanding is an awesome thing. And I think right now it's a really good product. I think there are a lot of really bright young stars. Obviously, Caitlin Clark is one that comes to mind. Paige Beckers is another one that comes to mind. And I just hope that when Cleveland ultimately does return to the floor in the spring of 2028, when they will play their first games as an expansion franchise, I hope that the support is there. This will be something that, I will be rooting for to be successful. I think it's a really cool thing. And I hope that they get a little bit of that lottery luck that the Cavs have had and are able to get a star early on in their process. Because I think if that happens, this has the potential to be something that's really, really cool. And I am certainly, for one, I am excited for it. And I hope that a lot of people are excited. I know there was a big response online today, but a lot of people being excited about the announcement that the WNBA going to be back in Cleveland starting in 2028. Of course, Detroit getting a team in 2029, Philadelphia getting a team in 2030. So it's cool that the Midwest/Northeast getting some more basketball that's going to be played year round, certainly in Cleveland. But thank you for making this edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube as we get out of here, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I'll be back tomorrow talking more about the Cavs.